It began with a simple line. "Well, how are you, Doc?" "How you been?" For fans of Gunsmoke, that line feels like home. But recently, one forgotten scene has shaken that nostalgia. A moment that somehow slipped past editors, a mistake frozen in television history. It's more than just a blooper. It's a reminder of how fragile even greatness can be. Behind the dust and gun smoke of Dodge City, the people who brought these stories to life were fighting battles of their own: pain, exhaustion, illness, and the quiet toll of 2 decades under the spotlight. What looked like a small mistake on film was, in truth, a reflection of something deeper: the human cracks beneath a legend. The unedited scene that changed everything. The scene in question begins innocently enough. Marshal Matt Dillon, played by James Arness, walks into town, exchanges sharp words with Doc Adams, and faces off against a drifter. It's classic Gunsmoke: grit, dialogue, and quiet tension. But then it happens. As Dillon turns, something feels off. A crew member, barely visible behind a wooden post, moves out of frame too late. The camera keeps rolling. The editor never cut it. The moment went to air exactly like that. For most viewers in 1973, television screens were small, grainy, and forgiving. Few noticed the mistake. But today, with high-definition restorations and millions of sharp-eyed fans online, nothing goes unseen. The internet rediscovered the moment, freezing it frame by frame, realizing that the blooper had made it through, untouched, uncorrected, and unforgettable. What makes it remarkable isn't just the slip itself, but when it happened. By the early 1970s, Gunsmoke had been on air for nearly 2 decades. The cast and crew were tired, overworked, and dealing with shrinking budgets. Arness, who had played Dillon since 1955, was already struggling with arthritis that made long shoots agonizing. He filmed many scenes standing slightly off balance, hiding pain that never made it to the script. The editors and crew, working under tight deadlines, often had only hours to cut entire episodes before airing. That unedited scene, the one fans laugh about now, captures more than a production error. It reveals a crew stretched to the edge, a man pushing through pain, and a show nearing its final breath. The blooper that slipped through wasn't carelessness. It was fatigue, humanity showing through the cracks of a dying giant. As Gunsmoke neared its 20th year, the world around it was changing. And so were the people inside Dodge City. From radio to television, the birth of a legend. Long before it ever appeared on television, Gunsmoke began as a sound: the low hum of a saloon piano, the echo of spurs on wooden floors, and the heavy voice of a man carrying justice on his shoulders. In 1952, CBS Radio launched Gunsmoke as a serious adult Western set in Dodge City, Kansas during the lawless years of the 1870s. The character of Marshal Matt Dillon, voiced by William Conrad, wasn't a spotless hero. He was weary, moral, and often haunted by the job. It was realism at a time when Westerns were still clean, romantic, and simple. For 9 years, Gunsmoke ruled the radio airwaves, captivating millions with stories that weren't about good guys and bad guys, but about choices, loss, and survival. Listeners gathered around wooden radios, hearing bullets fly, outlaws fall, and morality tested. By the time the series ended its radio run in 1961, it had already become a national ritual. Then came 1955, the year that changed everything. CBS decided to bring Gunsmoke to television, but the network faced a challenge. Who could embody Marshal Matt Dillon? William Conrad's voice was perfect, but his broad build didn't fit the tall, rugged hero image television demanded. They needed a face that could carry the West on its shoulders. That's when John Wayne entered the story. Though he never appeared on the show, the Duke played an unexpected role in its creation. When producers approached him, he turned down the offer. He hated television. But he recommended a close friend, James Arness, a 6'7" World War II veteran who had been wounded in Italy and carried shrapnel in his leg for life. "He's your man," Wayne told them. Wayne was right. Arness stepped into the boots of Dylan in 1955 and stayed there for the next 20 years. Through him, the quiet menace and compassion of the radio version found flesh and blood. From that moment, Gunsmoke wasn't just a Western, it was the American myth brought to life, a reflection of a country still trying to define its own sense of justice. But with every success came the shadow of expectation. And behind that calm, baritone voice, the man playing the marshal was fighting pain you could never see on screen, the hidden burden of James Arness and the price of perfection. By the time Gunsmoke hit its stride in the early 1960s, James Arness had become the face of American television. To millions, he was Marshal Matt Dillon, the embodiment of justice, courage, and moral strength. But behind the calm authority and measured stride was a man in constant pain. Arness had been a soldier long before he was a star. In 1944, during the Battle of Anzio in Italy, he was struck by machine gun fire in his right leg and foot. The injury earned him a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart, but it left him scarred for life. Every step he took on the dusty streets of Dodge City was real pain disguised as strength. Crew members often noticed that early morning shoots were his best. By afternoon, his limp deepened and exhaustion set in. To ease the strain, producers began filming all his scenes in a single day, letting him rest for several days afterward. Yet Arness never complained. In interviews, he simply called it part of the job. His stoic endurance became symbolic of Gunsmoke itself, a show that kept pushing forward through fatigue, changing times, and shifting audiences. Viewers saw a hero who never faltered, but what they didn't see were the ice packs between takes, the quiet moments backstage, where Arness sat with his leg elevated, trying to numb the throbbing pain before the next shot. Even as his health declined, he refused to step away. Unlike many stars who left long-running shows for film or fame, Arness stayed loyal from 1955 to 1975, 635 episodes, the entire 20-year run. It was an act of dedication rarely seen in Hollywood, but that loyalty came at a cost. The pressure to maintain Gunsmoke's realism meant endless retakes, and the physical toll nearly broke him. By the final decade, even walking scenes became a challenge, yet he carried the show as if duty alone kept him upright. That same duty, to his craft, his cast, and his audience, explains how a small mistake could escape notice. No one was looking for errors, they were looking for completion, for survival. And sometimes, survival leaves cracks in the frame. But Arness wasn't alone in carrying the weight of Dodge City. The rest of the cast, from Doc Adams to Miss Kitty Russell, had their own battles behind the barroom laughter and gunfire. Behind the saloon doors, friendship, secrets, and heartbreak. If Marshal Dillon was the heart of Gunsmoke, then Miss Kitty Russell was its soul. Played by Amanda Blake, she ran the Long Branch Saloon with grace and steel, a woman of mystery and quiet resilience. Her chemistry with James Arness created one of television's most subtle relationships, a love story that never became one. They never kissed on screen, never confessed feelings, but every glance between them carried years of unspoken affection. Off-screen, Blake often joked that she wished Matt would one day say, "Kitty, let's buy a patch of land and raise some beans and kids." But she knew it could never happen. As Arness once said, if Dillon and Kitty ever fell in love publicly, Gunsmoke would stop being a Western and turn into I Love Lucy Out West. Their silence was what made it powerful and heartbreaking. Blake's own story mirrored Kitty's strength. She fought her way into the role, chasing producers until they finally agreed to cast her. She stayed for 19 years, appearing in more than 500 episodes, becoming the first woman of Western television that audiences truly respected. But when her dear friend Glenn Strange, the actor who played the gentle bartender Sam Noonan, died of lung cancer in 1973, Something inside her broke. She left the show before the final season, saying later that Dodge City just didn't feel the same without him. Behind the scenes, the camaraderie among the cast was real. Milburn Stone, who played Doc Adams, missed only 6 episodes in 2 decades, even surviving a heart attack in 1971 and returning soon after. Ken Curtis, who brought Festus Hagen to life, based his character's voice on a local fence post maker he'd known as a boy. And Dennis Weaver, the first deputy Chester Good, gave the role his signature limp simply to stand out, a decision he later admitted he regretted when the physical strain caught up to him. They were more than characters. They were a family. But every family faces its share of loss. And as Gunsmoke aged, the losses began to pile up, friends dying, health fading, and the shadow of cancellation looming larger than any outlaw. Soon, even the strongest legends in Dodge City would find themselves at the mercy of the network, the day Dodge City fell silent. After 20 years on the air, Gunsmoke had become more than just a television show. It was a part of America's weekly rhythm. Families gathered every Monday night to watch Marshal Dillon bring justice to the prairie. But by the mid-1970s, the world had changed. Westerns were losing their hold on television, replaced by urban dramas and sitcoms. Even the mighty Dodge City could no longer outrun time. In 1975, CBS made a quiet decision, one that stunned everyone involved. Without warning, they canceled Gunsmoke. There was no farewell episode, no public statement, not even a message to the cast. The crew learned about it from industry trade papers. James Arness later said bitterly, "We didn't do a final wrap-up show. We finished the 20th year, and we all expected to go on for another season or 2 or 3. The network never told anybody they were thinking of canceling." After 2 decades, 635 episodes, and 15 Emmy Awards, Gunsmoke was gone overnight. For the cast, it felt like being abandoned without goodbyes. Amanda Blake, already grieving Glenn Strange's death, called the ending heartless. Milburn Stone, too ill to protest, simply said, "It was a hell of a run." Even the studio lot, once alive with horses, gunfire, and laughter, fell silent. Its streets empty, its saloon doors still. Fans were outraged. Letters poured into CBS demanding an explanation. Some members of Congress even mentioned Gunsmoke in public hearings, questioning why the network would kill one of America's most beloved programs. Ironically, it was CBS's own president, William Paley, who had saved the show years earlier after his wife begged him not to cancel it. But this time, there was no one left to fight. Yet Gunsmoke refused to disappear. Between 1987 and 1994, 5 reunion films brought the characters back, Return to Dodge, The Last Apache, To the Last Man, The Long Ride, and One Man's Justice. Arness, older but still commanding, returned as the Marshal one last time. Each film felt like a farewell to a piece of history, a slow closing of the saloon doors. The blooper that once slipped through editing may have been a mistake, but it's also a perfect symbol of Gunsmoke's end, imperfect, human, and real. A reminder that even legends fade not with gunfire, but with silence, bloopers, and the myth that never died. Even decades after its final broadcast, Gunsmoke refuses to ride off into the sunset. The show that once ruled television from 1955 to 1975 continues to live on in reruns, remastered DVDs, and online archives. What began as a half-hour radio drama became a 20-year epic, the second longest-running scripted TV show in American history, only surpassed by The Simpsons. But numbers alone don't explain its power. What made Gunsmoke endure was its humanity, and even its mistakes. That viral blooper, where a crew member can be seen slipping behind the saloon post, has become an unlikely symbol of nostalgia. Fans share it not to mock, but to remember. It's proof that behind the polished legends of the Old West were people, tired, flawed, and doing their best under impossible schedules. When viewers re-watch that frame today, they see more than an editing error. They see James Arness limping through the scene with quiet endurance. They see Amanda Blake hiding her grief, Milburn Stone pushing through heart problems, and Ken Curtis keeping the laughter alive between takes. It's a frozen moment that captures what made Gunsmoke real: effort, exhaustion, and heart. Beyond the blooper, the show's fingerprints are everywhere in American culture. The phrase, "get out of Dodge," entered the language because of Gunsmoke, used by kids, soldiers, and politicians alike. The show's structure, moral dilemmas, flawed heroes, quiet justice, shaped generations of television storytelling. Even after it ended, its spirit lived on in later westerns like Bonanza, The Big Valley, and Deadwood. For James Arness, who died in 2011 at age 88, Gunsmoke was both a career and a calling. He once said, "It wasn't just a show. It was a life." That sentiment echoed across everyone who ever stepped onto that dusty set. From 1952's radio debut to the final TV movie in 1994, Gunsmoke defined an era when storytelling was slower, deeper, and more human. And maybe that's why, when we notice that tiny, unedited scene today, it doesn't feel like an error at all. It feels like a piece of truth, a reminder that even legends aren't perfect. For 20 years, Gunsmoke told stories of honor, pain, and the cost of doing what's right, both on-screen and behind the camera. Maybe that's why one forgotten mistake feels more human than any line of dialogue. So, what about you? Do you think Gunsmoke's blooper makes the show more real, or should it have been cut? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time as we uncover more untold stories from Hollywood's golden past.